Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Gerhard Mathangani.
A potentially landmark decision will be now held in the courts. College basketball. We've seen this a few times before. Now it's hitting the SEC. Former Alabama star Charles Bediako is now currently on Alabama's roster. This is after he was filed a temporary restraining order and granted that by a Tuscaloosa court, making him eligible to play for Alabama this weekend with a court case coming next week. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, we have talked about this topic for a couple of months now, mainly because some power players, national champion coaches, namely Tom Izzo of Michigan State, John Calipari, who used to coach at Kentucky, now coaches at Arkansas, were really outspoken about this. Now it hits Alabama. A former star who played in the G League is now being able to go back to college basketball. This is getting more interesting by the day, the more and more these things now get hung up in the courts.
You know, this is like appeasement to me.
Yeah.
We saw the first two examples with Louisville, and I believe the other one is escaping my mind. I don't think it was the Baylor situation. It was the one all the way back in like October.
Correct.
The original one.
Yes.
And the NCAA is like, okay, yeah, we'll give you this. And then Baylor was like, well, what if I want this? And they were like, okay, well, yeah, we'll give you this.
Right.
Now we're starting to see Bediako be like, all right, so why can't it be me as well?
Yes, right.
And so the NCAA is trying to put their foot down, but it seems like every time, you just throw the word lawsuit out there, they're like, no. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do this. Please don't sue us. So, I mean, and the fact that it's filed in a Tuscaloosa court, I mean, you're going to win that all the time. We're going to talk about Trinidad Chambliss tomorrow. His lawsuit was filed in Oxford, literally a mile away from the campus, and the judge is an Ole Miss law grad.
Right.
So, like, how in the world do you think that you're going to win that if you're the NCAA?
That's exactly
But
right.
You and I were both talking, and this is a little bit of a slippery slope right now because, yes, he's eligible right now, but what are the consequences if he does play and the NCAA ends up winning this?
Yeah, this is really sticky in a lot of ways. I'll give you the particulars. So the Tuscaloosa County, the circuit judge, his name is James H. Roberts. He has this temporary injunction that is now filed. However, the court case is set for next Tuesday. If it is denied, well, if he does play in a game, the NCAA theoretically can come back and say, well, any game Charles Bediako played in, namely Saturday's game, but that is the only game. The Alabama's game against Tennessee is the only game between now and that preliminary injunction hearing there next week. He could be ineligible. So it could be a situation where Alabama does a wait-and-see approach. But it should be known just from a pure, just filing paperwork standpoint. He has enrolled in the school. He has now been able to been cleared by the court documents to be able to participate in all Alabama activities. So the injunction as of right now, the restraining order as of right now, is to not let the NCAA's rules, because the NCAA did rule him ineligible, not let the NCAA's rule apply in this situation against him particularly. So you're right. There could be a domino effect for Alabama if they do decide to play him. The good thing for Alabama is there's literally one game. This is a tough game. It's a tough game against Tennessee, but they should get this resolved relatively quickly. But you're right. It is the smaller wave of what could be a tsunami as it relates to college basketball altogether. Because what Alabama is saying is, it said this in the court documents, is that had Mr. Bediako known the changing landscape and known that he could have been compensated as a college basketball player, he would not have entered the draft 3 years ago. He would have come back to school. He would have stayed in school. And because of that, he's now trying to right a wrong decision that he made then. It's a compelling case because you can make that argument, but at the same time, too, I think if you're a basketball purist, you're like, hey, look, Mr. Bediako went to the NBA draft. I know he didn't get drafted, but he signed a two-way contract with the San Antonio Spurs organization, so he is, quote-unquote, a pro player. I think that this hits at the heart of a couple of things. Number one, the legality. The legality of Bediako being able to play. That's an NCAA decision.
Yeah.
And then it's the morality might be too strong a word, but it's the sense of like does this have a place? Does he have a place because he played in the G League not that long ago? Does he have a place in college basketball from a competitive standpoint? And what the NCAA is saying is, no, you're a pro athlete. And what Alabama is saying is, he's not a pro athlete, and let him right his wrong decision because he did not see this tidal wave coming from the NCAA.
Yeah, and I honestly, if Mark Sears didn't get into a game, I'd say, well, why don't they try to get him next?
Bring everybody
it
back.
Just makes me wonder, seeing another year of LeBaron Philon right next to Mark Sears, see what that would have done. But I mean, when you look at this from an Alabama perspective, they could definitely use the rebounding help. We've been talking about that, so it just so happens to be, Charles Bediako wants to return. Oh, yeah, we would gladly take you back as long as the NCAA allows it. So I think this is going to be an interesting storyline to pay attention to as we get closer to tip-off on Saturday, whether or not Alabama and Nate Oates actually decide to insert him into the game. I mean, I'm sure he'll be on the bench. But weirdly enough, I do see a lot of Alabama fans on social media like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even like this. Me personally, I don't like this because I'm on the Coach Cal side where you got 5 years to play 4. We cannot just have you going back on your own decision. When you make that decision to go to the NBA draft, that is final. You sign with an agent, that is final. You should not be able to come back because that's you taking the bet on yourself. You know the consequences. And now that we've had this open door, so to speak, with James Najee coming back and playing for Baylor, which I'm pretty sure they've lost every game since he's come back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Baylor program right now is in shambles, so to speak. I just don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird. This isn't the sport that I know.
And it's funny because it was interesting because COVID threw one loophole as it relates to eligibility and how long players are staying in college.
Yeah.
And what was happening is at the back end of that, we're seeing right now the end of that era where those guys were either, late in high school or early in college, starting to see the last wave of that. What we're getting into now is really interesting, is the NCAA's right to not let a player retain his eligibility and where
Correct.
that right begins and where that right ends. And I think that I'm with you and Coach Cal that from a pure competitive standpoint, I don't like guys that are just playing in G League games and being professional athletes now getting the opportunity and the chance to play in college basketball games. And here's a perfect example. A guy for Auburn right now is Dylan Cardwell. Dylan Cardwell, he did exhaust his NCAA eligibility. But let's live in a hypothetical world where he didn't.
Yeah.
He has one more year. Well, Cardwell goes to the draft and he goes undrafted.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Cardwell right now is playing very, very well for a guy that's undrafted. Scored like 12 points the other day, 8 points sometime last week, getting a lot more run than any guy that would have, in his situation, an undrafted guy been able to get. Well, he's going to basically sign for the rookie minimum, a little over $1 million. And do you think he has any thought, even if he had eligibility, does he have any shot or any thought of going back to college? Absolutely not. Why? Because you're a professional athlete.
Yeah.
He bet on himself. He did the training. He got on the floor, and he's producing. What this tells me is Charles Bediako, 3 years ago, bet on himself, and now he doesn't like his position. And because he doesn't like his position, he doesn't like playing in empty G League games, he'd much rather play in the SEC. And because, I'm not saying he failed, because he's a professional athlete.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he failed. I'm just saying that this just seems to me that guys are grasping at straws, trying to hang on to their eligibility, depending on what happens at the next level. And I feel like it's a slippery slope when you do that.
What even is amateurism anymore? Like, actually,
yes, right.
That is the talking point that I think we need to all come to agreement on. What defines amateurism anymore? It used to be, you don't get paid.
Right.
Well, now you get paid, and you have amateurs like in golf.
Yes.
You lose your amateur status when you start getting paid for events that you win.
Because you're a pro.
And I'm sure somewhere in these NIL contracts you have these performance-based incentives, which by law or by definition would be earnings from winning tournaments. Yeah. So I just don't even understand what this is anymore, because if we want to talk about what separates a professional from a college player at this
Correct.
point? You're both signing contracts.
Right.
We're already talking about multi-year deals. Duke is suing Darian Mensah. They're actually winning it right now,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
I think he
I
can't.
think it's going to go the same route as Damon Williams.
Yes, I mean, I think that whole debacle is probably going to go in the school's favor. But when you look at this situation, it's like, how do you even enforce how you're an amateur or not? Because
Right.
you both have these contracts, some of them multi-year contracts, and the only difference is you're playing a bunch of older guys.
Right.
Like that's really just the difference. So when are we going to be able to put our foot down and say, no, this is where amateurism ends?
Right. And I think if you're watching this and you're saying, well, it seems like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth, because it seems like when you say that, hey, Kejuan Lacey agrees to a deal with Ole Miss to come back for another year.
Yeah.
Is he now a professional signing a deal with another school? And so where does that eligibility, where does that gray area reside? And I think the NCAA is trying in real time to find that gray area. And yes, it does sound like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth when you're saying that a player agrees with the school in one regard, and then now we're questioning about eligibility. But I'm with you in the sense that I'm with Coach Calipari in the sense that you have this amount of time to exhaust your NCAA eligibility. And just like I said, we're running through that gray area of the COVID gray area of where eligibility begins and ends. And now it's like, hey, when did the college player that's actually now treated as a pro player, when did that begin? And that's a thing. Yeah. It's another slippery slope as well, because it's like Alabama's trying to say, well, it really began after Bediako left, and had Bediako had the opportunity to become a pro player in college, he would have taken advantage of it. I just find it to be very, very interesting. I also find it interesting what the NCAA has come back and said, because we've mentioned that they've not been great when it comes to lawsuits overall. But it looks like on this one they're trying to fight it. But what they're doing is they're trying to fight it through the court or through the Congress system. The way what they're saying right now, this is from the NCAA, is that the NCAA is aware of media reports about a lawsuit filed against the NCAA by Charles Bediako. Mr. Bediako signed 3 NBA contracts after competing in college for 2 seasons. I find that really interesting, the way that they put that.
Yeah.
Signed 3 NBA contracts after competing. So the NCAA has not and will not grant eligibility to any prospective or returning student athletes who have signed an NBA contract. Eligibility rules ensure high school students get a shot at earning scholarships, and we will continue to consistently apply and defend these rules. There's some wording in the language there that I found really interesting. They made sure to say he signed 3 NBA contracts to let everybody know this, to let the public know this is a professional basketball player. He signed 3 contracts. Now you can get to the wording of that.
Right.
There are 2-way deals and whatnot. He actually didn't get into an NBA game, but he did sign an NBA contract.
Right.
And then when they logjam in there, eligibility rules ensure high school student athletes get a shot, because what you're saying is that he's taking an opportunity from a kid in high school. So the NCAA is really painting themselves in a position by saying, we are the true arbiters, we are the true grounds for what amateurism is supposed to mean.
Yeah.
It's supposed to mean high school athletes need that scholarship, not a professional basketball player. I just find it interesting because they have gone a lot of letter to the law, and now they're trying, in my opinion, to tug at some emotional strings with the wording of their language.
Yeah, and it's the wording that everyone has basically thrown in the NCAA's face about the whole high school athlete situation. Now, I will say that him coming back and playing this year wouldn't affect someone that's in high school right now, because he'd just be done after this year.
Correct.
So, the only way I could see this affecting anyone is maybe London Jemison's playing time, maybe, if he does end up playing, or another forward on Alabama. It's not going to affect someone. It's not going to affect like one of their recruits right now that's just dropping 25 points per game, beating up on a bunch of high schoolers. Like that wouldn't do anything. But I think they're saying in the future, if someone, let's just say this, they were a one and done, but they went undrafted and they were in the G League, and then they still have 3 years of eligibility left, then I could see where this can get a little bit tricky here. Like if Mark Sears only was here 1 year and then he just didn't go, he just went undrafted. I believe he played in 7 games for the Bucks this year, so
yeah.
he's out of this completely,
Right.
regardless. But it's just an interesting situation, and so weird. The fact that we're actually talking about this when just 5 years ago, or actually just 6 years ago, we were talking about how NIL might be a thing,
right?
And it might be coming soon. And now look how everything has unraveled in such a short amount of time. And they're calling on Congress for help in trying to enforce some of these rules, because let's just face it, someone needs to step in, because the NCAA cannot enforce anything. They're just a puppet agency, it feels like.
Yeah. Alabama released a short statement just by saying the University of Alabama supports Charles in his ongoing efforts to be reinstated for competition while he works to complete his degree.
Oh, man, yeah.
I thought that part was
you complete that
hilarious.
degree, Charles.
He's had 3 years. He left in 2023. He could have taken off.
Yeah, you complete that. You go right for that. Yeah, we're all in favor for you.
It's an interesting fight, but he could.
I mean, at least J.R. Smith switched sports.
Right,
like,
right.
At least now he's playing golf.
Right, yeah.
He's in his 30s, but he's playing golf.
Yeah, after making a lot of money in basketball. So this could get really interesting, but theoretically, he could play on Saturday when Alabama laces it up against Tennessee.
Yeah, and honestly, I'll be paying close attention, because I don't know if there's going to be cheers or boos.
Right.
Because that game's in Coleman Coliseum, right?
Yep. And typically, Nate Oates meets the media the day before, so it looks like maybe Friday if he sticks to his normal.
I just cannot wait.
I know. He sticks to his normal media availability. He could talk tomorrow, depending on. They're probably going to run that thing through lawyers, so it should be really interesting to see how it all shakes out there on the court as Alabama gets ready to play a really good Tennessee basketball team coming up this week. We'll have a little bit more on this. We'll hear from Nate Oates a little bit later on as well. And coming up next year, we head out to South Carolina. Gamecocks got a nice win. We have that and more next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, we head over to Spartanburg, South Carolina, where the Gamecocks struggled a little bit to begin the SEC slate, but picked up a nice win over Arkansas. 86-75, that final score. Over Oklahoma, I should say. 86-75 there. Joined by Pete Yannity, our good friend over there in Spartanburg. I tell you what, I think that for any team, for any player that's struggling individually, it's just nice to see the ball go in the basket one time just for a confidence standpoint. And I think for a team like South Carolina, looking just to pick up a win and get some momentum, because they've been playing well, they've been playing competitive basketball. To pick up a win was nice for Coach Paris and company. What was your overall take about getting that win over the Sooners?
A good start was a big part of the story. They jumped out 21-8, and Elijah Strong, when he's on, he's one of the best players in the league. He ended up scoring 13 of their first 17 points last night. And then ended up with 17 for the game. He was kind of the first half guy, Michi Johnson the second half guy. Tell you what's interesting with the South Carolina team. So they're 2-4 in the SEC. They got absolutely drilled last week at Arkansas, and that's a game that can happen to a team that's usually going to be at best a middle of the pack team. And I think folks would agree if this team finishes near the middle of the SEC, it would be an achievement. But I'd love to see, and I haven't done the study, and I probably should have had a crack staff of researchers who are working on other scientific projects in our building right now, wearing their white lab coats. But I should probably have had them work on a number of the final 5 minutes of games, particularly SEC games. What's the point differential? What's the scoring margin difference for USC? Because couldn't close the deal against Vanderbilt, and that was a game at home against a team that I think was still unbeaten at the time. But that was a winnable game. They just had a lull at the wrong time, and Vandy had a couple of runs. Should have closed the deal at home against Georgia. Couldn't do that. At Auburn over the weekend, nip and tuck game. They eventually, lose that game by 4 points. But what happened in the final 5 minutes there?
Right.
And then last night, you just kind of felt like after they built this big lead, they're up by just 3 at the half. I don't know if we've talked about this, but the best way to kind of have an idea as to how a game might play out is at halftime, look at each team, look at the scoring margin, take the lead team, look at what their field goal percentage is, look at what the trailing team's field goal percentage is, and then split the difference in half. So if I'm up by 10, for example, at the half, then I want to be shooting at least the margin needs to be 10% field goal when cut in half. That's going to tell me I'll probably win that game. So last night, South Carolina's up by 3. They were shooting 47% from the field. So was Oklahoma. So it reflected basically a tie game. But if you're in a situation where you're up by 5 at the half, but the other team's out shooting you or is within that half margin of field goal percentage, that's usually going to portend. So Oklahoma in the second half, South Carolina gets the lead back up around 10. We kind of had a working margin of between like 6 and 10 points. Oklahoma got as close as 5. But you just kind of watch the last stages of that game, and I'm watching it, and I'm thinking, how are they going to blow it this time? What's going to go wrong? Or who's going to get hot at the right time for Oklahoma? Hit a couple of threes, change the whole look of the game. So the big thing has been closing out games. They're an 11-8 team. I think if you look at their body of work, for the most part, they've probably won the games they should have to this point overall and lost the games they should have. But, the Georgia game at home, they led that most of the way. The Auburn game on the road, that would have been a great game to steal. They stole one at LSU. That was a very good win. And then the win the other night against a decent Oklahoma team, not great. I mean, that could be an NIT team in Oklahoma. I don't know enough about them right now. But, I don't know that if that's an NCAA team, and maybe I'll be proved wrong over the next 6 weeks. But anyway, it was a good win for them, and it's one they really needed for mental purposes as much as anything.
They're getting to get their first taste of buckyball here on Saturday, and then after that, a tough one against Florida. You can't really expect them to be able to handle business there. But when you look at these next 5 games, what would be a respectable record after?
Yeah, they've got some tough ones ahead. I just think for the SEC, I mean, it's not as great as it has been, but it's still a tough league. And I'm always concerned when I see that the guy leading in scoring, in this case, Michi Johnson, who's at 15.1, he's up above 17 per game in the SEC through the first 6 games. I never like to have the leading scorer as my leading assist guy. Next on the team is more of a big Mike Sharvjomps, who plays more inside. He's second on the team in assists. I think against a team like that, you better be ready to handle the ball. You better be efficient. South Carolina will go into that game giving it up about 10 times a game. So they've done a decent job protecting the ball. But against Bucky McMillan teams, they're going to throw a lot of defense, a lot of full court pressure at you. But most importantly, you also better, after a made basket, you better be able to set up in your half court defense as well, because they will hurry it into the front court, try to shoot it early in the shot clock, but they will move the ball from wing to wing. They reverse it a lot. And I'm sure Lamont Paris, who overlapped by 3 years in the Southern Conference. Bucky McMillan got to Samford in 2020. Lamont Paris got the South Carolina job in 22. So they were going against each other for 2 years. And in year number 2 at Samford is when Bucky McMillan really got Bucky ball going there. So no doubt that they'll be really focused on the transition defense, and not only transition defense, but the fact that Samford, Texas A&M will hurry it into the front court, but then try to set up the shot. They won't necessarily go for the kill once they hurry it into the front court.
Absolutely. South Carolina got double figures from all 5 of its starters. However, only got 9 points from the bench. When they got, but do you think that Coach Paris thinks this is a viable blueprint moving forward, where you get most of your production from your 5 guys that start the game? I know they're the most talented. A lot of times they give you the best matchup there. But I wonder if you could pick his brain about how much he actually wants more bench scoring and or more just point distribution altogether.
I'm just looking over the minutes here. I want to make sure I've got it right. I can't pick his brain, but just kind of reading his stat sheet, Johnson's the only one getting more than 30 minutes a game, and that's fine. Sharv Johnson's really close. He's at 29.7. But then they basically have three other guys in the 20s, and everyone else is at and Eli Strong's at 18. You can tell he's the kind of guy that can only go in stretches. They'd probably love to see Eli Strong in the 25 to 30-minute range. But it's a dichotomy. Basically, six guys are getting the bulk of the minutes. Everyone else is down in the, there's one at 15, Grant Polk, whose playing time has increased. They're maybe playing him more than they thought they would. I don't know that for a fact. Everyone else is 11 or 10 or below that. So I think what Lamont Paris has identified is we've now gone to the SEC play. I'm going to trust 6 or 7 guys. Therefore, your bench scoring is not going to be what it is. And that's fine. I'm sure Duke's bench scoring is probably not great when held up against the success of their team.
Right.
But I think bench scoring can be a really misleading stat because, again, if I've got, 4 starters playing 30 minutes plus a game, and those guys are all averaging double figures, and you'll see a lot of teams like that, chances are you're not going to have a whole lot of scoring off the bench. And a lot of times your bench scoring stat is skewed because you took a guy who either you're unhappy with his defense, you're trying to send a message and take him out of the starting lineup, and you want him to watch until the under 16, but then he'll get in there and play his 30 minutes.
Right.
And so, and sometimes you have 6 guys who could start, and so it's kind of skewed. I live off of points in the paint, second chance points, and 3-point percentage obviously is important because 3 is more than 2, at least that's what they tell me. And points in the paint means that I can go play physically when I have to because there are nights when I'm not going to hit a lot of threes, and I've got to be able to score. And you look at it, Clemson lost last night to NC State. I don't know the final number if they led points to paint. They went into that game with 16 wins and were 15-1 when they won points in the paint.
Right.
So I hold that up as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's flip to the women's side. This is a team that is now 19-1. They're like on a 12-game winning streak. They avenged their only loss of the season when they lost to Texas. Ended up getting that win over Texas. The games that surrounded are all big blowouts, so not really much to compare it to, but they won the game that mattered. Another huge one against Oklahoma coming up next. What do you want to see from Dawn Staley's crew as they continue to not only grind through the regular season, but dominate through it? And what did you make of that win over Texas?
You said another huge one against Oklahoma, which they obviously hoped they would have to get to 20. I know what you meant, though. Another one coming up Thursday night. That's going to be a tough game. And frankly, watching that Texas game, it was a late surge by South Carolina that pushed them through. And give credit to Texas, they're really good. I mean, those are 2 top 5 teams, and those are legitimately 2 Final Four teams probably that went at it that night. And, Vic Schaefer has lost some big games against Dawn Staley, got him out in Vegas in a non-conference game earlier this year, as you'd pointed to. I wouldn't be stunned if you see them in a national semifinal or a championship game. Oklahoma, I actually did one of their games earlier this year when they were against an opponent that they knew they were going to run out of the gym, and they did. Excellent guard play, just enough inside. Good enough guard play to be tough on South Carolina, but this could be a Joyce Edwards game, and Medina Okot could also really step up down low. Oklahoma did not seem to be a deep team. I saw them all the way back in November. They didn't seem to be very deep, but boy, their guard play is something. They're very well coached. This is going to be a game similar to the Texas game for South Carolina, as much because it's on the road. But I really think this will be one that a lot of teams will look at the film on moving forward if it goes the way I think it will. But I wouldn't be stunned if Oklahoma upsets the number 2 team in the country Thursday. But knowing Dawn Staley and as great of a coach as she is, and, with Tania Ladson back from injury, taking time to get all the way to 100%, but with Raven and Tessa Johnson and their ability to score to complement Medina Okot and also Joyce Edwards, who is maybe the best player in the league. And then also they've had a player, McKeer, step up as well. McKeer has really stepped up nicely, too, and kind of been a good swing player. But I think South Carolina can easily go in there and win. I wouldn't be stunned if Oklahoma pulls an upset.
Pete, they're going to face who I think might be the best player in the SEC on Sunday in Vanderbilt, and that being Michaela Blake. So that should be a very nice matchup. You brought up Clemson, and, I was just wondering about this whole Charles Bediaco's situation. If they've checked on Chase Hunter, if they can, if he can come back, or Victor Locken, maybe if he can come back as well. Just anything about that. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's a good point. Well, think about this too. I was talking with a coach about this earlier today, and he mentioned, the kids who were denied the NCAA tourney in 2020 because of COVID, and I actually called a tournament that got concluded. I didn't do the championship game. I did all the games, just about all the games leading up to the title game. And ETSU was a 30-win team in 2020, and they held up a trophy to win the SoCon tourney, and then they had to sit out the NCAA tourney. That was probably a Sweet 16 team that year. And you wonder if some of the really good players on that team who went on, some of them transferred out to other schools. Steve Forbes, who's been at Wake Forest since, was their head coach. That run and the great run of 5 years he had at ETSU is what helped him get the Wake Forest job. But will guys from 2020, and women for that matter, say, hey, that season really wasn't worth it because my team could have, won a championship. And then the thing I'm surprised we haven't seen yet is that if you were a great player at a school that developed its, brand, or you helped keep the brand of that program in the 80s, 90s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, you're not going to say, I want to come back for eligibility. But it's like, look, if you're handing out money, I'm a guy on those really, when Michigan State became relevant again under Tom Izzo there in the late 90s, and he built it back up. They'd been good, Magic Johnson, late 70s, and they had some good teams. But if you were one of those who built the foundation for a school that suddenly continues to have a great brand, why aren't you saying, where's the pension plan?
Yeah.
We weren't paying back then, but where's the pension plan?
Right.
Who knows what could happen legally with that? The same coach said we're probably in, and this is just his opinion, we're probably in for 4 or 5 more years of having no rails on this thing where the agents are controlling things. Agents are getting 15% is the anecdotal evidence that's been put out there for these college kids. An agent for an NFL player or a Major League Baseball player is probably getting 3 to 5%. Yeah, 3 to 5%.
Right.
So it's just all crazy right now. At some point, some sanity. Like anything else, you need experiences and time for everything, for the level of water to find itself. You need enough players to go somewhere else where the grass was going to be greener, and then they're not playing, they're caught behind somebody, they're not happy in the situation. There's a guy in the Southern Conference that was at one school, transferred to a school that wasn't necessarily in that much of a bigger conference, and then a year later went back, they realized the grass wasn't greener. The money they were paying him didn't go as far where he moved to as it could have, and anyway, so the rails are off until, I don't know if, I truly don't know if federal intervention, governmental intervention would necessarily solve it because all the state laws are so different.
Correct.
But there has to be, you've got to get to a point where the legal threshold is, you know what, we've done everything we can in the courts on this. These lawsuits need to stop because there's now a legally approved process that's agreed upon in all 50 states that makes it work for a player with a grievance, be it a Darian Mensah who says, no, I really didn't mean to sign that 2-year contract, which apparently, because he's not an employee, might not be able to hold up anyway.
Right.
And I know there may be some developments on that or whatever Duke in their lawsuit as we speak here. I don't know if yesterday's revelation that Duke is now suing, basically saying he wasn't allowed to go in the portal based on our agreement with him, when that'll all get sorted out. But just crazy stuff. You mentioned Clemson. They had a crazy thing where a player who actually came and was enrolled in class, transferred from Cal, Luke Forelli, a linebacker, who was the ACC Newcomer of the Year defensively, arrives, puts his name in the portal, arrives early on in the portal process, was enrolling in class, taking part in some workouts and everything, and then all of a sudden, last Friday night, midnight was the deadline to put your name in. And he puts his name back in. He'd been at Clemson for almost 2 weeks.
Wow.
And it's one thing to be out there and say, yeah, I'm going to go, but I haven't signed, haven't arrived.
Right.
And there's been the suggestion, and it's been reported on in media out here, that he's going to head to Ole Miss, and perhaps they put a nice, big, shiny object out there for him to look at, and that's what motivated him. And so that's another example. I mean, it's one thing, you see it happen all the time. Kid commits, verbally commits, night before signing day out of high school says, I'm flipping.
Picks a different hat.
And even in the portal, you'll see, it's looking like he's going there. Oh, he decided to flip, and Clemson landed a junior college kid who apparently had committed to go to Nebraska but hadn't arrived there yet, wasn't going to class, but now he's coming to Clemson. So all
It's a
part of the
mess.
craziness.
It really is.
It's crazy.
It really is an absolute mess.
But I submit this to you, and I'm not trying to completely take over this conversation like I do most, but I submit this to you. For all the craziness, all the nuttiness, all the weirdness, that was one heck of a national title game the other night.
It was.
Oh, it was. Yeah, absolutely it was.
was.
And we do not get that national title game without all these new rules, without NIL, without the transfer portal. Yeah, you're right.
I'm going to give you a personal example. Radford, it plays in the Big South. They've got 3 power conference players in their team who are using the rationale, I guess, to go down a level, do well, and then at least have another year of eligibility, go back up a level and show, hey, I'm worth this much. You see great players now all over, and it could evolve eventually, but, again, everything always finds its level of water. For all the complaining of the portal's terrible, it's awful, and look, is it what NIL was originally supposed to make up for, and that's if you've got a star quarterback and everyone in the stands on a Saturday home game is wearing his number but not his name, but we all know why they're buying that jersey.
Correct.
He should get a cut of that or whatever. And I believe fundamentally there's nothing wrong with that. It just came upon this thing where it turned into free agency.
That's right. And
But,
now, as you said,
yeah.
it might be a half decade before we actually, get this thing back on the rails, because, like you said,
figure it out.
there's way too much incentive and way too many people that are eating at this pie, so to speak.
Yeah.
The players, the agents, the coaches to a certain degree, and everybody else. And so, as long as everybody stands to benefit, there will be people who will, backlog this and use these rules to their advantage. Pete, you've been incredible. Thank you so much for being with us here on Southeast Sports Plus today, and we will see you down the road.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Just remember the boomerang effect, for the ones you lose, you might get one come in by way of the portal from up above that, is better than you had. It's a really interesting story to watch play out.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for covering it for both South Carolina and Clemson on that side. And we'll enjoy some great basketball, both on the men's and women's side, coming up over there. Pete Yannity joining us from Spartanburg, South Carolina. Always really great insights there, and good insights to something I didn't think about, what happened pre-COVID when ETSU and teams like that did not get their eligibility. Do they have a claim now on the back end for pension and whatnot? So it should be an interesting follow as we move forward.
Yeah, and it also makes you wonder about, one of the big storylines that year was Obi Toppin over at Dayton.
Right.
I mean, Dayton was supposed to be the number 1 overall seed, and they never got that opportunity. So,
Yeah, and it's going to be a while before we correct all of this. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we'll talk some Ole Miss golf and basketball. Stay with us. We're back here on Southeast Sports Plus. We head over and talk with our good friend Colin Cody, joining us from Memphis. Last time we got a chance to chat with you, you heard the football team was making a run there at the national championship. Just because I just have to, did you play the what ifs in your brain about the things that could have happened there with Ole Miss? Play that really tight game against the Miami Hurricanes. I know it's been a while since that game, but after watching the national championship play out, what went through your head?
No, 100%. I think being 2 hours behind, and so much travel goes into going across the country, and, they win, then automatically you have to start to configure up your plans on how you're going to get there and, how's the best coverage plan. So it wasn't until Monday at 6 o'clock that my buddy texted me. He was like, "Hey, where you watching the game tonight?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, the national championship."
Yeah.
Football ended for me last week, and
right.
I'm like, dang, that wasn't the final game, and I just kind of wish they would have gotten that at least one more play,
Mm-hmm.
like how Georgia did in the Sugar Bowl, that Ole Miss would have had another
I didn't
chance
even
to get
bring
into
up
the end
that point.
zone.
That's such a good
Right.
point.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. We'll flip over to basketball. The basketball team looking to follow in the footsteps of the football team and end the year on a really strong note. Chris Beard's bunch won 3 straight games going into that Auburn game yesterday. What'd you make of what you saw there in that game, and kind of what this team is as they move forward? Because it looks like they have found some semblance of what they want to be from an identity standpoint.
I think you just hit it on the head right there. I think I saw growing pains last night. Auburn not as elite and talented as they were a year ago with all that depth. I mean, they were the same age of basically the Oklahoma City Thunder a year ago, and they came up short.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have, Pettiford in control of the show, and they have remnants from last year's team that made a historic run. Ole Miss has that similar component with Klefke and also Malik Dia, who are also on that team from a season ago as well. But I just kind of saw a team still trying to figure it out, still growing pains a little bit. You got AJ Storr, who's starting to become the guy. You can see that, like a Sean Padula from a year ago, who wants the ball in their hands. As you can see, they're 18 points, almost. Well, I mean, he didn't shoot the ball great, but it's the fact that he's starting to trust himself to take those shots. And I think Coach Beard is one of the best in the country when it comes to ensuring his guys and his players that this is who you are. I mean, it's okay to we brought you here and bought you here for a reason, right? You gotta expound on that some. So
Correct me if I'm wrong, before last night, and we've been able to follow Auburn a little bit closer than I'm sure you have, but coming into last night's game, I thought Malik Dia and Tahad Pettiford were kind of in the same realm where they came back from last year's squad, but really have been underwhelming so far this year. What have you taken from Malik's game so far this year? Is he underperforming? Is it a little bit of a shock to everyone over there?
I think that's perfect too. Pettiford, same boat. I mean, these were players who were once considered going to be the top of the food chain in the SEC this season, and I think a lot of that has to deal with teams are scouting them now. I mean, Malik Dia coming from a mid-major level, then transferring to Ole Miss and having success and losing some weight in the offseason, toning up a bit. I know he works out with a couple of guys with the G League, with the Memphis Hustle, and also some Memphis Grizzlies guys as well. So, he's got that backing behind him. And, I think it's just that teams are hunting him out more so than they did as he put on a spectacle last March as they made that historic run to the Sweet 16.
Coming up next, it's an interesting one, going to Rupp Arena to go play Kentucky. Then after that, it's Vandy and Tennessee. So 3 strong teams in different ways. I feel like this is a really interesting point in Ole Miss's season where they got those 3 wins in a row. They're 3-3 in the SEC with 3 really tight games. I don't know if you saw this 9-game stretch in a particular light, but now as I watch that 9-game, possibly 10 games if you add in that Texas game, what would, in your mind, and maybe if you're picking the mind of Chris Beard, where would you think that he would want to see his team after these 9 tough games in league play?
Well, I think if you can somehow split some of these games, especially if you hosted a 15th ranked Vanderbilt team with 1 loss on the season, that's a great place. They're going to pack the house out at the Pavilion for that one. Then on the road to Tennessee, and especially you got to say UT, the other UT. You got back-to-back UTs, but that Texas, that burnt orange, I mean, that is a game that Chris Beard is definitely going to hone in on. Obviously, his team knows his repertoire, being back in that area, and there's a reason why he ended up at Ole Miss, right? He's a successful guy. He's been able to build, and from Texas Tech, Texas to Ole Miss, I think they'll be ready for that. But especially last night, they just kind of ran into what I looked like. They ran out of gas, right?
Yeah.
You win 3 straight, and the way and the fashion they did at Georgia at the buzzer, comeback win against Mississippi State, like a rivalry match at the hump. Like, that's not something just easy to do. So I think they let the gas slip a little bit last night, and I think Beard is definitely going to hone in and put more emphasis on taking care of business at home against Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and then also on the road to Texas.
Colin, let's switch gears here for a second because there's some interesting news coming out of Oxford, not basketball, not football related. There's something new coming out about the football team every day, but actually about the golf team. And Michael Lasasso decided that he's going to turn pro after winning the NCAA championship, individual championship. He's going to be joining Phil Mickelson's High Flyers. Was this a little bit of a surprise move, or were Ole Miss fans kind of just waiting for the day that this was going to happen?
No, I think it's a surprise move, but I also think it's a shot in the dark for Liv as well. You guys didn't tell me we were going to talk about Michael Lasasso. I had already threw on my Augusta stuff. This is just, I'm on brand I'm PGA all day. So when we look at what Liv has been going through most recently, losing some big names that they took a huge swing on about 5-6 years ago, Brooks Koepka, whatnot, that you don't know what the future is in store for Bryson DeChambeau and even John Rahm. So these guys, they want to get back to playing competitive golf and have the focus back on them. So the easiest way for Liv to kind of continue to rebrand themselves is by getting the hottest talent and those guys that the PGA are sinking out coming out of college and overseas as well. And Michael Lasasso, I mean, that swing, I don't know if you guys play golf. I try to play golf sometimes.
Yeah, Patrick plays golf. He's really good at golf, yeah.
I'm in the single digits.
So
I'm at like a 4.8 right now. 4.8.
Well, you know what that swing looks like for Lasasso.
You want to talk?
They
teach you got to sit into the swing, and I mean, let me tell you what, he definitely gets his legs into that. I remember watching.
He just makes my back, my side just hurts to see him really kind of dig into it. But I mean, he's gonna be a talent, and he's proven that. But we also have to think he won a couple things on last year with the Rebels. But he did finish third overall when it came to the national championship. So I think it's a bright pickup for Liv Golf. But for Lasasso, at this day and age, what's the difference between him joining Liv and hopping in the transfer portal and making a whole lot of cash at a very young age? And I think that's he could eventually end up on the PGA Tour down the road sometime soon anyway.
Well, I mean, since you have the Masters quarter zip on, I might as well ask you, were you a little surprised that he basically gave up his Masters eligibility? I know he played in the U.S. Open at Oakmont in 2025, but were you a little bit surprised that he was like, you know what, this is bigger than just playing in the Masters this year. I'm going to go and join Liv and presumably get my bag, so to speak?
100%. I think I've seen this. I can't remember the guy's name. He's from Mississippi somewhere, but he was one of the low AMs for the Masters back in, I think, 2021, 2022, and he did all of the majors, right? Then he decided to, all right, the PGA's log jam, I'm gonna take myself to Liv Golf. So I do think it's pretty shocking the fact that he did this so early in the PGA Tour season, knowing he had exemptions coming up. And maybe the thought process is he can grab this cash now, and like I aforementioned, like he can get back on tour and hopefully earn that card, which it seems so risky, right? Like if you already have a guaranteed spot to play at Augusta, I mean, you're playing with house money. That's what it always feels like when it has, you know what I mean? So like, I thought that was interesting. He could have at least waited until April to make this decision.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was wondering if there was any, I haven't seen any reporting on this. I wonder if there was any pressure to do this before and kind of get on the heels of the Brooks Koepka news from last week and say, okay, well, Koepka made that move and to give, Liv some more nice PR. It's like, oh, we got the national champion, we got the next best thing. I found the timing of all of this just super interesting in the sense of like where Liv is from a PR perspective. Did you?
Absolutely, and I think that goes back to, I think that Saudi money goes a long way, and they probably threw a bag at him that he could not refuse. I mean, even, he's had conversations with his teammates and his coaches in Oxford saying, look, guys, I know we got a stout team coming back, but I think I'm going to take this opportunity. And when I read that component of it, it kind of showed the writing on the wall that ultimately this was an opportunity he couldn't turn down, especially when you have a guy like Phil Mickelson right there in your ear saying, hey, if you just take this blueprint, no matter where you go, maybe this is going to work out for you in the long run. Because with Liv, they're moving into such a untapped market in the social space when
Yeah.
it comes to golf. I mean, you guys saw what was the latest Adam Sandler movie? I mean, the whole thing
Happy
was
Gilmore
Lil
too.
versus PGA. Yeah,
Yeah.
Happy Gilmore too, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, so yeah, I mean, you get these guys that really don't know a whole lot of the history behind the PGA and the what it means to play at Augusta and play at Oakmont and all these things. You know, I think it means less to those guys. Not a bad thing at all. It's just us old guys. We take so much homage into prestige and pageantry when it comes to those things.
One more question before we let you go here. It seems like Jackson Koivu is probably going to be the #1 golfer in the SEC coming into this year. Who is going to fill into Michael Lasasso's spot there on that Ole Miss team?
Ooh, man, that's a good question. They have a deep roster. I'm not gonna lie. They have 6 returners from last year. Malloy, he said, he's fired up to look at these guys as they continue to get this run and get back to the national championship. And I think Cameron Tankersley, he might be a surprising.
Yeah, I'm giving him the
Tank.
nickname, the Tank.
Yeah, I mean, he's been solid for those guys the last couple of years. So I think Cameron, he might pick up the torch and continue to do what Michael Lasasso intended to do this season in 2026.
Absolutely. You have been great. I know that you've been super busy, been traveling, but you've made time for us and for our show. Thank you so much here for your time, Colin.
Oh, you guys my friends, man. Of course I'm gonna make time for y'all.
Absolutely. Well, the feeling's mutual, but we really respect your time and really appreciate your insight there on all things Ole Miss.
No problem. Y'all stay safe.
You too. Stay safe there in the cold, the ice there. We got a chance to talk to them during the break. It could be a little dicey over there for lots of part of the country, especially there for Tennessee. Hoping everybody stays safe. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we will close up hour #1. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, we're closing up hour #1. Our last topic there with Colin Cody was about Michael Lasasso, a former SEC athlete, now taking his talents over
Still thinking about that swing.
to live. I know, and it is strange. It's effective for him, but it's
Sit and then go.
Yeah,
Just that sounds so tough.
and it feels so mechanical. And as Cody, because Colin said that it almost makes you hurt as you go you're like watching him do it, because it's
weird.
like you wonder how much that's putting on his lower back and whatnot as he moves
My
forward.
early pick, Jackson Koivu, wins the SEC though.
Okay,
he's
wow,
the best. He's the best golfer in the SEC in my opinion.
Yeah, so you think this could go on through yet another week. We will talk more golf coming up next year on Southeast Sports Plus.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Gerhard Mathangani.
Former Texas Longhorn star and now the #1 player in golf, Scottie Scheffler, set to make his 2026 debut this week at the American Express. Of course, he won the Player of the Year last year for the PGA Tour. Looking to add to it, he has 4 majors to his name, but looking for something even more special coming up this year. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, this time of year is always really fun for those of us that keep up with golf because it's kind of the build up to what will be a really fun spring and summer as we get cranked up for the major tournaments. But what I find really special is the guy that was the #1 player in the world all of last year, and a guy that just continues to be jaw-dropping, and his consistency is once again set to make another debut this year. And I feel like we haven't had a nice string of success where the #1 player in the world has stayed that way since Tiger Woods. And once again, I'm ready for the former SEC star at Texas to make a move.
Well, I'm glad that he found someone to cook at Christmas this year, so that way he's not cutting cookies with a wine glass, and then
right.
you just get glass stuck in your hand, and then you have to miss the first part of the season. I mean,
that story.
That
That's
was like
hilarious.
what in the world? That's just one of those stories that you're like, how in the world did the world #1 golfer for, I believe, the past, at that point it was about 3 years,
Right.
How in the world does he not have a personal chef for him? Or why in the world did he try to cut cookies? Like what are we doing here? But
right.
No, at least he's healthier this year. And I think golf fans are a little disappointed that usually the Century is the tournament that opens up the
right.
PGA Tour season. And the course there at Kapalua was just, it's not in good condition, and I think it's because of the droughts going on over there in Maui. So that was definitely very unfortunate. But now we've got the Farmers, the Farmers is in 2 weeks. The American Express is this week, and
right.
Scottie Scheffler looking for another incredible year. And it's just always been the one thing about him is, he's so good with the driver, he's so good with the iron play, but the one thing that weirdly enough has kind of held him back just a little bit is his putting. And even that, he's still an above average putter, but it's just like sometimes you're watching, and if some of these putts were to fall, he would actually probably be the most unbeatable golfer. And I root for him, not only because he's technically a former SEC guy, even though he played in the Big 12 when he was at Texas. I root for greatness. I want to see someone go up against what Tiger set out to be, and the sky is truly the limit for him. As you mentioned, 4-time major champ, but he's looking for that career Grand Slam this year.
Yeah, and 2025 was a good year for him. Obviously, ended up winning a couple of major tournaments. I think it was 6 PGA Tour events. All in all. But he does lack one thing on that resume that would give him the career slam. I know in golf and in tennis especially, you're judged by these 4 events, and I know that I love the PGA Tour events. I love the Olympics.
Yes.
I love all of the kind of the big events outside of the majors, but you're kind of judged on the majors. And when Tiger was coming up, he wanted one more than Jack, and Jack is known for 18. And so this is kind of the fair or unfair. This is kind of the way that we have ranked golfers over time. And he's on the doorstep of doing something really special this year.
Yeah, and he just needs that U.S. Open, but for some reason it's been so elusive for him. His best finish, I believe, was second.
Second, yeah.
I don't remember what year. I think it was the winged foot year. I wanna say.
Right.
But I mean, you go back to this past year. Didn't go his way at Oakmont. It didn't go a lot of people's ways. I mean, we saw some ugly scores, but I will say, as a golf fan, one of the things I like most about watching golf is when they get their teeth kicked in. Because it's like, one of us, right there, you right there are just one of us.
Yeah.
You have those mistakes too. You could duff a chip, you can blade one, not into the stands because you definitely don't want to take anybody out by any means. But it's been so weird. And then the year before when it was at Pinehurst, it just looked like he ran out of gas. I think that was the back end of when he won like 3 straight tournaments.
Right.
The Memorial he was fighting a swing all week, and it just seemed like he was out of gas. I think he finished like 8 over or something, and he had a consecutive streak of rounds under par broken that week. I think it was like 72 rounds.
Right.
It's just something ridiculous.
Unbelievable. And I think that too, we were talking earlier with Colin Cody about kind of the unusual, it's not even awkward because it works for him, the swing of Michael Asasso, but with Scottie Scheffler, you kind of had that little weird jump in his swing as well.
I will say this.
Yeah.
I saw a video of him the other day swinging the driver without doing the
Really?
shuffle. Yeah. And it looked so weird. And it was still a bullet cut right down the middle.
Okay, so I was going to ask if it's effective. I remember Tiger Woods he would morph his game and he would change his swing from time to time. A lot of times it's more so changing the approach more so than it is when the ball's actually struck. But that the ball strike with Scotty, he's been known for that. He was synonymous with that little jump action. I don't even call it, like just like a little where his feet kind of leave the ground. It's like, yeah.
Well, I mean, what if I don't even know if. I mean, you could equate it to Curry changing the three-point game forever. Everyone wants to chuck up a bunch of three-pointers now. Everyone wants to follow the foot shuffle. I see it out on the golf course every once in a while, and I'm like, dude, what in the world are you doing? You're not Scotty Scheffler. Like, come on, we've got grown adults trying to copy a golfer. Like, what in the world are we doing?
I do feel like, and you bring up a good equivalent in basketball with Steph Curry, because I do feel like Steph Curry, one of the reasons why he's so relatable is because you see yourself like him, because he is tall, but he's not crazy tall. He's not super huge.
Well, Scotty's tall.
And Scotty is tall as well. But like it's you don't compare it to like LeBron James. Like you're not 6 foot tall, 260 that can run like a deer. You feel like you could play like Scotty Scheffler, and Scotty continues in the offseason to work on his game and to find ways to win tournaments and stay the number one player there in the world. We got a chance to hear from him just ahead of the American Express about his offseason as he looks ahead now for tournament number 1.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's changed too much. I had a few extra weeks off this year, and fortunately it wasn't due to injury. Just the start of the year started a little bit later for me, but overall, no, things I'd say were pretty similar in the offseason for me. I definitely don't show up to tournaments trying to get my game into shape. I like to be prepared, and that's something that I pride myself on. And so I like to say that's a good gauge just because it's different being in competition, I think, than practicing at home. You can do your best to simulate it, but I don't think there's anything like coming out here and playing and posting a 72-hole score. And so tournament golf's always just a bit different. And so you can prepare as hard as you can, but sometimes you do have to shake off a little bit of competitive rust just from an extended break.
If I'm just giving you a toss of the coin or just a yes or no, and I don't know what the numbers are. I'm pretty sure that there is somebody in Vegas that has a number on this. If he is going to compete that career slam, if you do like his chances at this year's U.S. Open, I kind of ask you two questions kind of back to back. Number one, does he complete the career slam? And two, does he at least match or win another major this year, even if it is not at the U.S. Open?
Well, I can guarantee you he's going to win a major this year.
Okay.
And I could almost guarantee you he wins the Masters this year because he's been a part of the green jacket ceremony for the last 4.
That's right.
You remember, won it in 22, gave it to Rahm in 23, won it in 24, gave it to McIlroy this past year.
Yeah.
It's the U.S. Open's at Shinnecock Hills this year, up there in New York City. So we'll have to get Simone Eli to get us some nice coverage.
Absolutely.
Over there in Flushing, not too far away from where the Mets play. And speaking of the Mets, they are making some trades. But anyways,
making some noise.
Yeah, they're making some noise. I don't know because he did actually play decent.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been playing great.
Right.
He's not a big-time team golfer. It seems like his Ryder Cup record and President's Cup record actually is a little bit underwhelming.
It's kind of odd how poorly he does play in team.
Whenever
play.
he gets into a team setting, it's just like, man, for some reason he can't find things to click. But I mean, when you talk about that Ryder Cup last year, Europeans just were absolute lights out on the putting green.
They were.
I mean, it was absolutely unreal.
Yeah.
I think it escapes him for at least one more year. It's just for some reason, something about that U.S. Open. I don't think we're gonna have like a Rory situation where it's like, oh yeah, that one tournament, that one tournament seems to escape you. And unlike the Masters, where it's played at Augusta National every year, the U.S. Open continuously rotates.
Right.
I forget where it is next year. I want to say it's Shinnecock Hills this year, and I want to say it's like Erin Hills in Wisconsin next year. I want to say potentially. I know you're working on that.
Yeah,
it's going to be at Oakmont for like 5 times in the next 50 years.
Right, yeah.
That's one of those anchor sites. But
yeah, you're right. Shinnecock Hills, then Pebble Beach, then Wingfoot, in 28, then Pinehurst in 29.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I think I said Oakmont. I meant to say Pinehurst.
Yeah.
But speaking of SEC guys, Justin Thomas is rehabbing from back surgery that he announced that he had in November. So if you're wondering why he hasn't been playing in the TGL, which I believe that started about a month ago now, that is why. And one thing I remember about Justin Thomas, and these last few years haven't been the greatest for him. He's been dealing with some injuries. Mental game is so important in golf, and it
Right.
just seems like he's trying to get back to where he used to be. But that picture right there kind of exemplifies his season last year. Yeah. I am going to remember 2025 Justin Thomas as that unreal final in singles, the Sunday singles.
Yes.
In the Ryder Cup and that putt that he made. I mean, my goodness, that was one of the most electrifying things in golf. But unfortunately, Shane Lowry had to ruin it for the U.S.
He did, and it was such a good moment for him. And he's a former Alabama star, obviously good friends with Nick Saban, plays a lot of golf with Nick Saban, and his former coach there in Tuscaloosa. I'll kind of pose the same question, but not in a major situation. Just from a tournament standpoint, do you believe that this can be a turnaround year despite the fact that he's coming off of surgery?
I think so. You definitely can't really expect. I think in the beginning you just want to. And I'm obviously not Justin Thomas, so I wouldn't be making expectations. But if I were in a situation, I'd just want to make sure, one, I get through the first tournament healthy, and then my swing's feeling good. If I make the cut, that's great. But I'm more so trying to make sure that I can get through. Well, obviously, if you make the cut, you're playing all 4 days. So
right.
I want to make sure that I can get through 4 days of golf. I would expect him to make a run here towards the end of the season, maybe make a FedEx Cup push towards that end. But I mean, I don't know what you can truly expect, because this does come at an unfortunate time, because it seemed like he started to find that confidence down the stretch last year. But I mean, him, Jordan Spieth, and some of these other guys that haven't won in a while, it's just like you're waiting for them to. Do they have that one last little push in them?
Which is so interesting, because it felt like, especially with Jordan Spieth, and I know we're talking 10 years ago when he was competing and winning Masters, a Master, but it felt like their runway was so long, and we were watching the next version of not necessarily even Tiger, but like what Phil had, like a nice run where they're in contention a lot. And it just felt like year after year after year, and tournament after tournament, and a major after major, both guys, Justin Spieth and Jordan Thomas, who seemed to have the same career trajectory arc, both seemed to kind of fizzle at about the same time. Now, obviously Thomas had that moment last year. I wonder if Spieth can have a moment. I've been rooting for Spieth. It feels like Spieth has a, it's kind of one of the veteran guys that can make that next push going.
But it's just unfortunate, because a lot of people are going to be thinking about that 7 on 12 when he held the lead in the Masters, and it seems like ever since then, unfortunately, that little stretch right there, alongside, not only was that kind of the downfall of his reign of greatness, but it was also that the whole right before was the end of Tiger's reign of greatness, that whole infamous drop penalty.
Oh, that's right,
that he ended up dropping in the wrong spot. That was the start of Tiger's downfall. So it's been a little bit unfortunate. But another guy trying to return from his downfall is Brooks Koepka, and he has returned to the PGA. I think we talked about this a little bit a few weeks ago, but he's going to return to the PGA Tour and give up an absurd amount of guaranteed money. Like, we're talking over $100 million.
I saw the parts of what he needed to comply with in order to, in order to get reinstated by the PGA, and I was like, he's giving up a lot. So there must be a lot of. When I saw he wanted to go back to the PGA at first, wasn't necessarily too shocked. I thought that there might be a lot of these guys that jump back from LIV onto the PGA Tour. When I saw what he was giving up, and I was trying to pull it up, because it was a lot. Number one, it was a lot of money, but it also lost a lot of prestige. And I just felt like it kind of told me more about what it might be going on between the LIV and the PGA, that there might not be an agreement. I know President Donald Trump is trying to go into the negotiations as well and help broker a deal between the Saudi group and the PGA Tour. Rory McIlroy has come out and already said earlier today that he thinks the sides are too far apart. But Brooks Koepka returning back and under the conditions that he had to, made me pause and think that, oh man, these two might be way off, and he actually thinks it behooves him more to come back to the PGA Tour.
And I know Koepka's a FSU grad, a Florida State grad, an SMU grad, and Bryson DeChambeau. Did you see how much money he wants?
No,
in his next LIV contract?
No,
$500 million.
Wow.
He wants 500. What is Ronaldo making?
Is he even making that? Well, I mean, he's with that Saudi team.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that much, though. I mean, I'm not sure. It might be.
I want to say Ronaldo's making like $700 million.
Is it that much? Wow. I know. I mean, with the Saudi group, it feels like monopoly money over there, just how much they have of it. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yes, I'm seeing 677. It's the first.
Yeah.
With the Saudi Arabian club, $677 million.
$500 million. And I mean, Bryson obviously has his YouTube as well, and I'm sure he gets a lot of ad money as well.
Right.
I'm sure of it. But I mean, goodness, he kind of is now the face of LIV. Mm-hmm. Now that Koepka is leaving, I know Rahm decided to stay. DeChambeau also decided to stay. And there's no guarantee that these guys are going to be able to come back. So, I mean, who knows?
Right. And especially if, I mean, all these guys can still compete in the major tournaments.
Yeah.
And so it feels like for them, hey, if they can still compete for majors, they'll just take the money and they'll just let it run with it. And, Michael Asasso from Ole Miss is kind of following the same footprints and doing it, except he's doing it at 22 years old when all these other guys are doing it towards the back end of their careers. Golf
I think the first event's next weekend.
SEC
golf.
SEC golf, next week. And then LIV starts in 2 weeks in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, we're getting to it.
And then the American Express starts tomorrow, right? American Express starts tomorrow. So it'll be a lot of great golf here over the course of the next few weeks, both on the college level and the professional level. So I'm really excited to see that. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we will head over to Arkansas, talk some Razorbacks, hoops, and so much more. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, probably the most intriguing game if you're a SEC basketball fan on the board on Tuesday was a game between Vanderbilt and Arkansas. Vanderbilt was a team that started 15 or 16-0, started undefeated in league play for the first few games. Arkansas has seemed to find its groove, destroyed South Carolina over the weekend, scored more than 100 points, and then played that Vanderbilt team in-house. And I went into it thinking, okay, this could be a really tight game. Well, Arkansas blew their absolute doors off. A huge win at Bud Walton Arena. We were talking yesterday with Courtney Mims, and she said, hey, I think Bud Walton could be favorable for this team. She was a little nervous about it, but 93-68, the final score. This was, I think, kind of a statement win for Arkansas in a kind of a bevy of statement wins here as they've now moved to 4-2 in SEC play.
Yeah, I just don't even know, what to make of this because I think Arkansas is probably the most dangerous team to play after they lose a game. I mean, they're 5-0 with a couple of absolute blowouts after they lose some of these games. And I said yesterday I thought this was going to be one of the best games of the season, and it just seemed like I don't know how you can't get up for a game after you've lost the last two.
Right.
That just doesn't really make sense to me. And it never seemed like Vanderbilt had a chance in this game. I think they were down by 31 at one point.
Right.
31.
And I don't know if all that had to do with just the arena and just the Bud Walton. And there's a quick turn between those Saturday games and those Tuesday games. And I one of the things that I said yesterday, one of the reasons why I really liked Arkansas was the fact that they were undefeated at home.
Yeah.
In that matchup. They're now 12-0 at home. 6 players in double figures led by the sensation Darius Acuff, and then 17 points there. They won that rebound battle by 12, opened the game on an 18-4 run. As you mentioned, that 31-point lead there at one point for this team. And I sense that, I don't know if it's panic time for Mark Byington and company. I just don't know if I've been pushing pause on this Vanderbilt group to say that they're the elite of the SEC for a while, and this game makes me reconfirm that, hey, let me pause on thinking that this team, they lost 2 games, they're going to be out. There won't be the highest ranked team next week when the polls come out.
Yep.
It just feels like to me that there needs to be some recalibration there in Nashville.
Well, and I think Corey Curtis said it best. We don't know what this team looks like when Tyler Tanner does not have a good night, and I don't think he had a good night by any means. I think Tyler Nickel was their leading scorer with 17 points. So it's just a little bit confusing right now for Vanderbilt. And you definitely can't press the panic button just yet, because even though you lost your 3rd game, you're still 16-3.
Right.
As long as you win most of your games the rest of the way, you should make the tournament. I think the only thing that they're playing for right now is just seeding. But I mean, if you kind of let these like small wounds, so to speak, I mean, if you start to let them become bigger than they actually are, then you might need to start hitting the panic button, because you can't let the Texas loss affect the next game, which it looks like it kind of did.
Right.
And then you cannot let the Florida loss affect you the next game, which it definitely looked like it did against Arkansas.
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit confusing right now for this Vanderbilt team, but you gotta give Arkansas credit. And then Trayvon Brazile with a double-double against the Commodores last night.
They're number 5 right now in KenPom as far as the offensive rating, number 21 team overall. So that's what the advanced metrics would tell you. Coach John Calipari's group now 14-5 overall. We heard from Coach Cal after the game.
I don't know what to tell you. Why? Do we get arrogant, win a game, play well, and then go and just act like the other team's going to lay down? Are we looking for the easiest way? I don't want to come in every day ready to play. I just wanted to, when you have a chance to being a special team, and individually, you have a chance to change your life forever, and you just, I didn't feel like it today. I don't get it. I don't understand it. You know, this team bringing DJ off the bench was for one reason. I needed to get him going. So I wanted him to be the point guard. So when he went in, he handled the ball. So he had the ball more in his hand where he could then start, just go play. And he did great. Started Carter to get him going. And I said to him, rebound, defend, block some shots. Don't worry about this bag over here. Leave that over there. Just do these things. It doesn't take skill. It doesn't take confidence. Go do all this, and that other stuff will happen for you. Still took a couple threes he didn't need to take. What happened when he drove it? Head on the rim. Now, why wouldn't you do that more if that's who you are, unless you want to show something out? Don't worry about showing. Play.
Play.
And play. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about this bag over here.
Yeah,
you can get it later.
You'll get that bag later once you take care of business. He referenced 2 guys. Carter Knox, 30 minutes, 16 points, 6 of 9 from the floor. You mentioned those 3-pointers. He took 5 overall, made 2 of them. He also mentioned DJ Wagner came off the bench. 11 points in 16 minutes, 5 of 8 from the floor. So it does seem that Coach Calipari was able to kind of push the right button, so to speak, last night, even though he still sounds a little irritated and annoyed by it going into that matchup. For Coach Mark Byington in his group, are you at all nervous about what this run has meant for their team, or is it just kind of a blip in the radar?
No, I think this is just a blip on the radar, because if you take a look at who they played, it's a tough stretch. I've been very outspoken about how I think the Moody Center's haunted. You just can't really win there unless you're Bucky McMillan.
Right.
I mean, that was still a little bit shocking to me. But then you go and play the defending national champions at home, and that's always going to be a tough one. And then you're playing an Arkansas team that, as you saw before, they were 4-0 in games after a loss. Well, now they just made it 5-0. And
right.
I would have loved to see the point differential on games
I
after,
know.
because it might honestly be north of 100 points.
Yeah.
Which is just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm too worried just yet. I think we still have a lot of games left to be played. I believe there's still 12 games left on the schedule. Plenty of opportunities for you to get back on track. But now is about when you want to start peaking.
Yes.
You can have all of those bad games earlier in the year. But if you start off this year, and I saw this firsthand with Syracuse, I want to say about 12 years ago when they had Tyler Ennis. They went on this crazy 22-0 run to start the year or something like that. Just absolutely insane. And then they lost the game to Boston College. And then a week later, they lost the game to Duke. And then they ended up being second-round exit. So they went from the number 1 overall team in the country to the number 3 seed and lost in the second round. So, I mean, that just goes to show you what can happen in basketball if you aren't playing well at the right time. And we saw Arkansas last year get better as the season went on, and that's why they made a decent run.
Right. And Arkansas, when they are playing well, because as you mentioned, in the games that they are playing really well, they're blowing teams off the court.
Yeah.
But they haven't won 2 games straight in a while. They haven't lost 2 games straight in a while. But their wins, they scored 94 points, 108 points, and then last night, 93 points. A really interesting matchup, because I say interesting not on paper, because they're playing a LSU team that has 1 win in the SEC. But LSU wasn't that long ago gave Kentucky a lot of problems. They've been competitive over the last few weeks. This game, I know, is at Bud Walton Arena, so, I mean, it goes in their favor. I'd feel it'd be dangerous if it was in Baton Rouge. I just feel like this could be a dangerous game for an Arkansas team that, watches a team that they know they're better than walk into their building this weekend.
This is definitely one of those trap games, so to speak, that all these coaches like to talk about. But I will say this. I don't think LSU has a chance this weekend, because I literally watched Boogie Flan just dunk on someone last night and just take the will out of LSU. That I don't know how you recover from that. Like, honestly, if I got dunked on, I would probably just hang my cleats up or hang my shoes up right away. I mean, there's just no coming back from that. I think this Arkansas team is going to go on a run here, and do you want to run through these next 5 games and play a nice little game of win L? Win or L?
Yeah, I like it.
So LSU.
Okay, if that game was in Baton Rouge, I would say probably sneaky game, and I might pick the upset. I might bet the upset, but because that game's at Bud Walton Arena, LSU might give them a scare, but that's a win.
Yeah, give me the win.
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
That game at Oklahoma for a long time was kind of unbeatable on their floor, especially during the non-conference. But Bama went in there and beat them. I didn't really smoke them, but Bama went in there and beat them. They're beatable now at home. As Pete Hannity said earlier on the show, they might be an NIT team. I think Arkansas takes care of business.
Yeah, this one, I think they take care of business as well. It's one of those weird games. I mean, Oklahoma didn't really play great against South Carolina last night. Mo Wagi wasn't even in foul trouble, and he still only played like 17 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Kentucky at home.
End off the month against Kentucky. I think this could be an interesting one, because I know. And will they play at Rupp later on in the year? Okay, they don't play at Rupp this year. So
they played last year, right?
Yeah, they played at Rupp last year. So I thought this might be a game where Cal would have to go back to his old stomping grounds. This game will be a little bit easier at Bud Walton. But I'm now saying that if I say that they're going to win this game, I'm now bucking the trend. The trend is they don't win a lot of 2 games, 3 games in a row.
Yeah.
I would say they slip up somewhere. This will be the slip up. I think Coach Mark Pope and company, they get the win in Fayetteville.
I don't think this is the slip up. I think the next one's the slip up. Mississippi State. They're just weird. They're just a weird team.
Strange squad.
Kind of like one of those teams that is up, it's down, it's up, it's down. But one of those teams that you could definitely see at playing spoiler in a March Madness type feel. I was going to say Ole Miss is kind of that team up until last night.
Yeah.
But I think that's the one slip up I see on this, because they should handle LSU both times.
Absolutely. And then right before Valentine's Day, they got that game at LSU. Yeah. I think that game could be the slip up there.
You think that one's the slip up?
Could be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it also kind of depends on what happens in this first game.
Right. Yeah.
'Cause it is basketball
set the
too.
tone. Right.
It is basketball. I know LSU isn't really where they thought they would be. I believe they went the entirety of non-conference undefeated. I think they started 12-0, and then the slip-up started to happen. But should be an interesting one.
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
Absolutely. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we'll talk some NFC Championship action as we now go from the Final Four to the two teams that will be in the Super Bowl. Stay with us. We're back here on Southeast Sports Plus. Several former members of the SEC will be on the field this weekend looking for a spot in Super Bowl 60. This is the NFC and AFC championship games. We will start here with the NFC championship game. It is a rematch, it's the third game between the Rams and the Seahawks. The LA Rams lost to the Seahawks late in the year, and Seahawks ended up getting the #1 overall seed. So kind of opposite approaches here because the Seahawks got the #1 seed and they got to host. The Rams, by the way, they did not get the #1 seed, so they had to go to the wild card round. They had to travel twice, but they went to Carolina, knocked off the Panthers, went to Chicago, knocked off the Bears last week, and now looking to win another game to punch their ticket to the Super Bowl and looking for another Super Bowl championship in the Sean McVay and Matt Stafford era. I find this interesting for a lot of different reasons. We knew that this division would produce some of the best teams, the best situations, the best storylines.
Oh, yeah.
The San Francisco 49ers last week just proven to be a team that was literally just too banged up. I think that the injuries just caught up to them. 41-6, it wasn't even competitive there at the very end. This one, I believe, will be more competitive. Talked about being banged up. Seattle's banged up. We'll talk about them a little bit. But I find it kind of is perfect that it's these two teams here matching up because this was the best division all year.
Without a doubt. And it just felt like a juggernaut. And it seemed like at least one of these teams was going to be playing for the NFC Championship. And it's just ironic that the NFC West are guaranteed to have a team in the Super Bowl. And it's so weird because it feels everyone, I think I said this before, everyone talks about how it's like 2016 and 2026. Well, the Broncos and the Seahawks are the #1 seeds in their respective conferences, and there's a possibility. We'll talk about the Broncos tomorrow and their chances with Jarrett Stidham, former Auburn quarterback.
That's right.
So going from one former Auburn quarterback to the other, we'll see how that happens. I believe Stidham was also on the Patriots.
Yes, he was
earlier in his career. So I mean, looking to get some revenge there. But talking about this game, we'll go back to the 49ers game. I mean, this game was over after the first kick.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Rashid Shaheed, just unreal. One of those trade targets. I think I said to you about how, hey, the Steelers might want to target this guy.
Yes, you did.
He could be available.
The replacement for DK.
Well, the Seahawks ended up getting him, and you didn't really know. I think I was a little bit puzzled by the trade at first because it's like, well, you have Cooper Kupp, you have JSN, you have all of these guys. Why would you want to trade for Rashid Shaheed? I just don't know where he fits in. And, well, there you go. That's how he fits in right there, nicely on the kickoffs and the punt returns.
Yeah, special teams has been kind of his forte, and they've needed some game breakers with Sam Darnold there at quarterback, and they've kind of gotten those game breakers there with them. You mentioned JSN might have had one of the best seasons that we can remember from that standpoint, from a I would say from a straight receiver standpoint, but it wasn't as dominating as some of the big receivers that we always associate with that. Guys like T.O. or guys like Brandon Marshall, these 6'4" guys that have these incredible years. It feels like guys like JSN and Puka Nacua that have been giving us these seasons here as of late, kind of the smaller guys that can run every route in the route tree.
I will say this. I almost find it a little bit impressive because this year has been such a defensive dominating year. Just the fact that he was able to put up these numbers. I believe all of these teams are averaging on defense below 20 points per game, which is just absolutely unreal. We'll see how that translates here into this weekend because obviously the Seahawks have a pretty good offense. Can Sam Darnold? We want to talk about the college football storylines that we had. The NFL storylines are all pretty good too. I mean, you got the Rams trying to win in 2 different eras under Matthew Stafford. You got the Seahawks. Can Sam Darnold actually win a Super Bowl?
Right.
And then your Patriots, can they actually win under Mike Vrabel in year one?
And
then
the
Broncos, can Jarrett Stidham, come in and play spoiler?
Yeah, and be the backup quarterback. We've seen that a few times before, the backup quarterback coming in and playing the hero. The former Georgia quarterback, though, is Matt Stafford in this game for the LA Rams. And keep in mind, when they lost that game, they're trying to avenge the loss that they had on that Thursday night game right before Christmas. They lost that game 38-37 in overtime. But keep in mind, Matt Stafford threw for 457 yards in that game. He had a really nice game as far as just straight up yards and stats go, and it'll be a nice battle between him and Sam Darnold. Threw for 3 touchdowns there in that game as well. I find this a kind of a compelling storyline for Matt Stafford because it looks like he's the odds-on favorite to win the MVP. And if he goes on to win this game and go to another Super Bowl, I think he could probably, get fitted for a gold jacket there in Canton as a Hall of Famer.
I would make the argument he's already.
If not already. I think that there's some people that want to see multiple Super Bowls and or multiple MVPs, but I think if he gets the MVP and or gets the Super Bowl, I think he's in certain people that are arguing the opposite side of that.
I think if he wins the MVP and wins Super Bowl and names Super Bowl MVP, it's a sure in. Let me know what your jacket size is. We'll see you in a few years.
Yeah.
I think at that point he will have done enough because he had to go through a lot in Detroit.
Yeah, he did.
Some of the dark years of that franchise. And
darkest,
bad years over there in Detroit. So for him to be able to, I will say this, I think the Rams window is probably closing.
Yes, I would say so. Just from an age perspective,
this may be the last chance that they have.
And I think if you're a Rams fan, you're happy for that defense because that defense is young.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a quarterback league, and what we're seeing in college football, we saw, the most impactful player was Francisco Mendoza. Led his team to the Heisman, led himself to the Heisman Trophy. Led his team to the championship. Same thing in professional football. It starts and ends with the quarterback. So I think you're right there in that regard. Either way, these two teams have played really tight games. Matthew Stafford has been really solid there in the playoffs. That first game, if you're wondering, if you don't remember that far back, all the way back to November 16th is the game that the LA Rams won that game by 2, 21-19. It's in the Seahawks won by 1 in the overtime game. So it should be really interesting there as these two teams hook up once again. Coach Sean McVay for the LA Rams talked about this Seattle-LA rivalry as they meet for time number 3 in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you got to just, you take into account the previous 2 times. We've been in similar situations. When you look back to the COVID year, we played Seattle 3 times. Playing them in the wild card round, and then our Super Bowl year, we ended up playing the Niners for the 3rd time in the NFC Championship, both of which we had games late against them. The Niners game was the last game of the year, and then the Seattle one in the COVID year was, I believe, the second to last game of the year. So it is an added layer, but it's really just a familiarity. Let's put together the best plans that we can for our guys, and let's understand, what type of execution and what type of competitive stamina it's going to take for us to go get the job done against, as complete a football team as there is in this league and as hot of a football team as there is in this league.
So they're trying to end off the momentum that's already been started there with Seattle. Last thing on the Rams, we talked a little bit about Matthew Stafford. So far in these playoffs, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Those 3 touchdowns all came in the first game.
That's exactly right. I think that he He probably doesn't have to throw for 457 like he did in their last game. They didn't win that game anyways. He does have to play better, though. In my opinion, he does have to play better in order to get the win on the road against the 12 in Seattle.
I would honestly not be surprised if this was one of those weird, ugly, low-scoring games, potentially below 20 points. I mean, you want to talk about, because this isn't, and I know rivalry games, coaches want to minimize what this actually means for some of these players, but I mean, I'm sure both sides want to get up. LA, obviously, because they lost that game late in the season on what was a weird play. I mean, Zach Charbonnet, who we'll get to the Seahawks here in a minute, they're going to be without him, just randomly picked up the ball, and it ended up giving them the win just in the end zone on the 2-point conversion. And then I think Seattle on the other side is also thinking about that game in LA where Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions, had his worst game of the season, was the MVP favorite up until that point, and still only lost by 2 because you miss a field goal late in the game that could have given you the win. So I think both sides are going to be up. They're going to be ready for this game. I want to say this is the first NFC championship in Seattle since the game winner against the Packers. I think so. Yeah. And I think that's the one, that was the year of the infamous call on the goal line.
The call. Yeah. And I mean, there's some iconic games that come to mind when I think about playoff games that were in Seattle. This might be a little before your time, or maybe before you were watching.
Oh, don't bring up the Cowboys one.
No, I wasn't going. Actually, I wasn't going. I didn't even think about that one, but no, I wasn't going to bring that one up. I'm not that mean.
I appreciate it. I won't bring up Nick Foles.
I was going to bring up I think it was Matt Hasselbeck that we want the ball and we were going to score. When he called that one in overtime,
he threw big, right?
And then he throws the interception. I remember that game, and then the game that Marshawn Lynch had. I think it was against the run that he had against. I think it was against the Saints. When the stadium started shaking. Those are the 2 games that come to mind. It just seems like iconic games always end up happening in Seattle. It should be 44 degrees when those 2 teams
it'll be warmer than down here, I think.
Yes, it will be. It will be warmer in Seattle, and it'll be drier probably as well, because I don't think they'll get much rain up there, and we're expected to get a lot of rain down here.
I will pose this question to you.
Yeah.
Can you see a world where Sam Darnold actually makes the Super Bowl, though? It's so weird when you say that out loud.
Yeah, given his trajectory, because you don't necessarily see a guy that's on is this team number 5 for him? I mean, you don't see a guy that is this highly drafted, considered a bust, then resurrects his career, and then gets basically booted by the team last year when the Vikings said, "Hey, thanks, but no thanks. We don't want to sign you to a big deal." Signs the big deal, and then now reaches here. It's weird to see, and I'm going to make an interesting parallel here, because up until about a month ago, if I was playing the "Can you close your eyes and see this happening? Can Indiana win a national championship?"
This is true.
And so I am just now starting to kind of take what I would think.
Based off of what you're saying, Seattle should win the Super Bowl then. Because Fernando Mendoza did it.
Correct, yes.
Indiana did it.
Right, yes. And a guy that got a second chance, their quarterback, rehabilitates his quote-unquote image, so to speak.
Shout out Kyle Shanahan.
Exactly, yeah. And then another a championship winning coach. I know Cignetti hadn't won one yet, but you could tell that all the pieces were there to be a great coach. Same thing with Sean McVay. I know he's already won one, but the pieces were there even beforehand that he was going to be a great coach as well. And then you have also Mike McDonald, who was a great defensive coordinator there in Baltimore. Now can he lead a great defense and now lead Sam Darnold there? The pieces are there, and I think that the Indiana win has kind of warped my brain into thinking like, who's to say that this is not possible in this day and age? I know it's 2 different sports, 2 different situations, but I just stopped doubting, I guess, is the better way to put it.
You just got to stop doubting. We did hear from Mike McDonald on him showing what his team's expectations are.
You got to, if you say it's going to be about intent, then I think you have to back it up. And that's not just me. That's like our coaches and our and the vets on the team by hey, look, if you come up and you're prepared and you have a great attitude and you get after it and you go practice and go let it rip like we say all the time, you have to see like, okay, like I'm not going to get killed for doing something, but for making a mistake, so that way we can have that intent all those times. And to me, it's a coach's responsibility to make sure we make the most out of those reps by how we design things, how we coach it up, how we improve from rep to rep. And I feel like as a team, we've done a great job of that. I know we've fallen short sometimes, and that's going to be inevitable, but as long as you realize it, and then you kind of make it right and nobody's all bent out of shape about it, you just say, hey, look, we realized it. We screwed this up. All right, now what are we going to do to move forward? And, it's no harm, no foul, and let's rock and roll from there. But I think it's just that consistent attitude from day to day.
Score prediction.
This was interesting.
This one's going to be a tough one
to
predict.
This is going to be a tough one to predict. Over under 2.5. Over under right now 46.5. The point spread right now, as I see it, is Seattle's a 2.5-point favorite. Expected score around 24-22, 25-22, just depending on what side of the number you're going with.
Yeah.
Which lends credence to your point that this could be a lower scoring game. I do see Seattle coming away with the win here. It's going to be hard because more will be asked of Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Because no Zach Charbonnet. I'm going to change my pick. I'm going Rams.
Wow. Because Charbonnet's out.
Because I think what's going to happen is that Charbonnet's out. They don't have as strong of a running game with Velus Jones, even though he's a guy from our area. I'll go ahead and readily admit that. Him and Cam Akers are going to be the guys that might be pulling one other player off the practice squad. I think they're going to ask Sam Darnold to put the ball in the air 35, 45 times, and I just think that he throws one or two that costs him. And I believe that the Rams will find their footing. And I might go back and forth all the way till Sunday on this one, but as of right now, this show, give me the Rams in the upset. Money line is plus 130.
Ladies and gentlemen, do not listen to what he's saying. Because Kenneth Walker, that dude's a beast.
He is a monster.
He's a monster. Absolute monster. I saw him trucking dudes over there at Michigan State. He trucked everybody in Ann Arbor over. This dude's going to run for 100 yards. This dude's going to run for a touchdown.
On Jared Verse and that defense?
Oh, yeah. They haven't seen this. They thought they were going to get Charbonnet. Nah, you're going to get Kenneth Walker. This is Kenneth Walker's coming out party. I think the Seahawks win this one because Kenneth Walker just does enough. He's going to have a Mark Fletcher Jr. type game where he gets these 7-8 yards of carry and just ground and pound until this game is over.
A lot of explosive plays. Yeah. I will say, though, my favorite unit in this game, if I'm just doing offense, defense for both squads, if you put the four together, I'm not counting special teams, my favorite unit is the Seattle defense.
Oh, yeah.
I think the Seattle defense will be able to hold Puka Nacua in check. I believe that Stafford's going to have to go elsewhere. He didn't have a good game. And Devin Witherspoon, a guy that played at Illinois from our area here as well in Pensacola, I think that they'll have a good game on him. I believe Matt Stafford will make a couple of plays late in this one to keep it going.
I think so.
I might go back and forth on this one for a long time.
Give me the Seahawks.
But also, I'm actually having to forecast forward who I think will play my Patriots in the Super Bowl. Yes, I'm going ahead and forecasting it. We will.
No, they won't. No, they won't. They can't beat a backup quarterback.
We will break that one down coming up tomorrow. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus. We will close up shop here on this Wednesday. Stay with us. We are closing up shop here on this Wednesday. Just two games in the midweek slate on the board for tonight. We head out to Rupp Arena where the Texas Longhorns visit Kentucky. The Wildcats, a 6.5-point favorite, and Buckyball over there at Texas A&M will host Mississippi State, a battle of two teams basically wearing the same color scheme in Mississippi State and Texas A&M. Two games that we were talking in the break, Patrick, that could be interesting. Also could be two blowouts here, just depending on the way that it goes.
Yeah, I'm trying to make a good correlation for this because I just don't know how you can. It's like when your team signs one of those low risk, high reward type players,
right?
And they end up potentially turning into some crazy, stud for your team. I mean, these could turn into some absolutely insane games. Texas at Kentucky, there's the potential for that, but also Mississippi State. If Josh Hubbard scores 40 points, I mean that could definitely put a scare into buckyball. But it is 3:56 on a Wednesday, and let's make some of these midweek predictions.
First up is Texas and Kentucky. I'm going to go first with my handicap here on this one because I've been back and forth because this is a game just strictly by the number. I want to say Kentucky.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have the mystique of Rupp Arena and everything else. I will say this, though. The last time Texas was on the road, they played in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. They won that game. So Texas is not afraid to go on the road. They're 2-2. I was looking at the standings just to make sure I was right on that. They're 2-2 so far on the road this year, and Kentucky has lost 2 home games this year as well. So I think there is an avenue for Texas to get this win. I predicted a couple last week, actually, that there might be some chaos in the SEC. I didn't see any chaos last night. There might be a little chaos today. What might be a snooze fest Wednesday, I think turns into a mini action-packed day. I like the Texas Longhorns to go to Kentucky and get the W.
I actually think I'm in agreement with you because you look at Kentucky's last 2 games.
Right.
And I mean, you want to talk about the goofiest ways to win each of these games.
Right.
You go down by a boatload of points. Yeah, I think the first game it was 17 against LSU.
Right.
And then you come back and win on a sheer luck buzzer beater to knock off LSU.
That's
that
right.
one was a major win for them. And then come back and go down big against Tennessee on Saturday just to come back and win the game in the second half. I mean, that's not sustainable. How can you sustain that?
No, you can't. No, you can't.
This team has been, I'm going to throw the word fraudulent out there. It's been a little bit concerning, especially when you throw $22 million into your roster.
Yeah.
You cannot be this bad when you throw. If you throw $22 million into a roster, you should be ranked at this point in the season. You are not ranked.
I agree. I think, though, if it's tight, I think Texas needs to win this game kind of comfortably because if it's tight, keep in mind, Kentucky has won their last 2 really tight games.
They have confidence if it's tight late.
Yeah, if it's tight late, they do have it, and Texas lost their last tight game against Texas A&M.
But, I mean, yes, I think Texas is going to win, but we saw this last year bringing up the whole $22 million roster, ironically with the same letters, except just flipped around. KU, Kansas.
Oh, yeah.
I believe they had a $20 million roster last year. Didn't really do anything with it. So that's why I think Texas is going to win tonight. I would expect Jordan Pope to have a really nice game.
All right, the final one.
Mississippi State
and Texas A&M over there playing buckyball. You go first on your handicap on this one because I don't have a great read on it. And I'll tell you why I see kind of both sides playing out.
I think Texas A&M wins this game because what we're going to see in these first go-arounds with buckyball is that these teams are going to think they have a grasp on what it is.
Right.
But they don't actually.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the only team that kind of had a grasp on it was Tennessee.
Yeah.
I don't think Mississippi State is ready for what this actually entails. I think Rashawn Agee posts his 9th double-double of the season, and buckyball cruises at home in College Station. They get a double-digit win over Mississippi State on a night where Josh Hubbard scores 20 points.
It's always interesting because I find these games as one, like I say it in football, either it's a straight-up upset or it's an absolute blowout. I think it is an absolute blowout there in College Station. I think Texas A&M does get the win, and the losing streak continues for Mississippi State. Now they're going to lose 4 in a row. We'll break it all down coming up tomorrow on Southeast Sports Plus. We'll see you then.